Hello, Tony.
Yes.
How are you? It's Frank DeFreitas.
I'm good. How are you, Frank?
Doing pretty good. Thought I would give you a call and find out some information about this light meter that you've put together, and you sent an email to me about that, and thank you for sending that. If we were to talk about that, what would be the most important information you'd want the listeners to know about?
The most important thing I want listeners to know is that it's available.
Okay.
This is something that I put together because I thought there was a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there used to be a meter that everybody liked called Science Mechanics SM3.
Yes, I have that one.
And I think that one is out of print at this point.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opportunity here to replace that meter with a 21st century upgraded kind of version. And I have been doing holograms in my basement for about 3 years now, and I basically started with your book, with Shoebox Holography.
Oh, that's great.
And I've kind of graduated from laser diodes to higher powered helium neon lasers, and I have a small table, and I've experimented with all of the different kinds of silver halide film that I can, and plates that I can get a hold of.
And what turned out to be your favorite to work with so far?
Well, so far, I'd have to say my favorite is BB.
Yeah.
It's definitely the most reliable, and it's the highest performing one that I've found. I think that probably Ultimate can also be very good, but I've had a really strange problem with Ultimate in that I haven't been able to get any that isn't like totally fogged.
Oh, that's interesting.
I have gotten several batches, and the folks at Ultimate have been very, very supportive, trying to help me out. I've had several batches from France. I've had one batch from Canada, and we thought maybe it was X-rays, but now we're pretty sure that's not the case. And I've tried everything that I can think of. So we're still in the midst of sorting out what's going on there. But I think that Ultimate probably can give the same kind of performance, based on what I've been able to see, aside from the fact that I'm dealing with this horrendous fogging problem. But I expect that it would be nearly as good, or perhaps even better than BB as far as noise and contrast and so forth. And I suspect it's much more sensitive. The drawback on BB is that it's fairly lower or less sensitive, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Than most everything else, so it requires a longer exposure or higher power.
Where are you getting your BB plates from lately?
I buy them from Vintech.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. He's still
South Carolina.
Okay.
They're super to deal with. You can place a web order, and the stuff shows up in just a few days.
Yeah. Did they say about the Ultima? Did they think it might be your processing regimens?
Well, they provide the developer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we've tried everything we can possibly think of. There's still an outside possibility that it's something to do with my safe lighting.
Okay.
And other than that, we've exhaustively eliminated every variable that we can think of so far, which is very strange. And I completely believe that it works at some locations, but it doesn't seem to work in Andover. I don't know what.
It sometimes one of those variables turns out to be the most surprising element.
Yes.
Do you use tap water?
We've tried different kinds of water.
Yeah. Okay.
Typically, I use bottled water.
Yeah.
And I tried an experiment with bottled distilled water, which I would have thought either one of those would be fine. And the thing is, all of my regimen has worked okay for many other kinds of film.
Yeah,
I've got some old Agfa, I've got Slavich, and I've even gotten some Fuji. So I've tried a lot of different kinds of film, and most of them work the way you would expect them to work.
That's interesting. But now you have a light meter.
That's right.
I saw a picture of it. It's very nice with the digital readout. What are the functions on there?
Essentially, it gives you 4 numbers at a time.
Okay.
That's as much information as I could squeeze on the display. And the top 2 numbers are your reading in power for the object beam and the reference beam.
Okay.
And one of the bottom numbers is the total of the 2 beams, so that's just adding the power together. And the other is typically a ratio.
I see.
And so you can set it up, you can place the sensor where your film is, and you can card off one beam and measure the other. Then, so for example, you could card off the reference beam and measure the object and punch the button in for that.
Yeah.
And then you can card off the object beam and measure the reference, and at that point, it'll give you a display of the ratios.
I see. Yeah.
So if you're shooting for a particular ratio that you like, you can tune it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all real time. And the power readings have trending on them, so that they have a little plus and minus sign that comes and goes depending on whether the reading is going up or going down.
I
so
see.
You don't have to do the mental math. A lot of people noted that they really liked the ability of an analog meter with a needle to be able to follow whether things are going up or down. So I added that function in so that you can use it for adjusting optics. You can find the center of the beam. You can just set it up and tune your spatial filter for a maximum output, which is basically the optimum setting in most cases, unless there's something funny with your optics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it also can do optical density.
Okay, yeah.
So in that case, you can set it up so that it measures basically the log of the ratio of the 2 readings. And so what you would do for that is you'd put the sensor in a little plastic bag and put it face up on the table, and you can develop your film and put it in some stop bath or fixer or something so that you can turn the lights on, and then you can basically measure the room light with nothing over the sensor, just the ambient light.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put your film over the sensor and measure the other reading, and it'll compute that the log of that ratio and tell you what your optical density is.
That's interesting. I noticed that a lot of the instructions and the spec sheets that come with holographic films fail to mention anything about final densities at all.
Right.
I was always surprised by that, because I know in the olden days, back in the day of color separations and things like that, and outputting film from like linotype machines, laser printers and things, that you always went for a density. Always put your film under a densitometer.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think some people are, get into the numerical accuracy of it. Some film manufacturers, I think the Slavich webpage does have a density versus exposure curve. But I think there's some experimentation also. There's kind of a rule of thumb that I've observed over the 3 years that I've been paying attention, that transmission holograms want to be around 1 to 2, and reflection holograms want to be 2 or better.
Yeah.
So that's useful for that. I mean, a lot of people just develop by eye,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of processing schemes don't account for being able to make a density measurement before you bleach it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it might still be possible to do that if you had for example, if you had a light source which was not in the sensitive area of
mm-hmm.
the film you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using red sensitive film, if you had a green LED as a light source, you could probably still go ahead and do a density reading on it, even before it's bleached.
Yeah, yeah. And if it's not your reading, you get it back into the developer.
Right.
Yeah. And let me ask you this: is the the LCD panel that's on your light meter, is that backlit?
Yes, it is.
Great.
It has a green backlight to it, and the backlight consumes a lot of power from the battery. The thing draws almost no power except for the backlight.
Yeah.
And so the thing has an automatic power down. If you don't punch any buttons for 5 minutes, it shuts itself off.
Wow.
And then if you just touch a button, it comes back on again.
Wow, you really thought of everything with this, didn't you?
I've had some experience building things that involve a processor and 3 buttons. I've built a number of different products for different markets, kind of on my own. And so I have kind of a canned hardware approach using some of these microchip computers that are absolutely phenomenal. There's as much processing power in these single chips as there was on the first computer I learned on, which was a PDP-8 back in 1968.
I think around 1970 I was on maybe a machine, one of them called Wang's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Had punch cards.
Yeah.
You punch out a program on a card, and you put that punch card into a little reader, and then you go onto the little terminal and do your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something. Back in the days of punch cards and paper tape. So
long way.
You go back quite a way too, huh?
Yeah, I do. I can remember first getting interested in lasers and holography from probably a Popular Science magazine article about Upatnieks and Leith when they made their first transmission hologram, and then I did some holography in the early 70s when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I got some information from Scientific American article, and I made split beam transmission holograms on my basement floor. And I still have some of them. They're pretty amazing that they've lasted this long.
Yeah.
And then the internet is an incredible thing, because every once in a while, late at night, I'll get bored with whatever I'm doing, and I'll just type something random into a search engine. And about 3 years ago, I typed amateur holography into a search engine, and that was just the beginning of a brand new hobby for me.
Yeah.
So I've been going pretty steadily ever since.
Well, I really respect the fact that even though you did holograms back in the 70s, when you first came on the program, you said you've been involved for 3 years, because there's nothing that drives me nuts as much as folks that did a couple holograms, back in the 70s or 80s for a project or whatever, or maybe they worked on it for a year or whatever, and then for 20 years haven't done anything, and then they get back into the field, and the next thing you know, they're saying they've been involved with holography for 20 years.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy. And that's out there, too. But the internet is wonderful. Folks from all over the world will hear your interview. I don't know if it'll sell any light meters, but they'll listen to the show. But hopefully, speaking of which, do you have a standalone website that has information about this meter? Because I can include that link.
I haven't gotten that sophisticated yet. I posted it on the holography forum,
mm-hmm.
and if folks are interested in getting a look at it and reading about it, I would direct them there. Just go to the holography forum and look at the for sale section, and there's a new product announcement in there.
Okay.
And holography is basically a hobby to me,
mm-hmm.
and I thought that I could make a contribution to holography by making this meter.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be anything that's going to support me in my old age.
I know.
I'm not going to quit my day job.
No.
And at the same time, if I'm going to build a quality product, and I'm not going to make a kit, I'm not going to make it something that won't work.
Yeah, stay away from the kits. Really.
I need to charge a fair price for it.
Yeah.
So that's where it's priced, and that's where it's intended to be.
And what is the price?
$179.95.
U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that includes a sensor, and I use a solar cell for a sensor.
Mm-hmm.
And I've chosen that sensor because I've found that it's inexpensive. It's a nice large area, so that you can integrate over an area of the plate. It's very thin, so you can position it in the plane of the film
mm-hmm.
readily. It's not bulky, and it has a very low reflectivity.
Yeah.
It's a very dull surface, which means you don't have to concern yourself about the several percent that might be reflecting off the front, say from a typical sensor that has a glossy, shiny face to it.
Yeah. And that actually happens when you put a holographic plate into the plate holder as well. You're still losing a certain percentage off of that first surface that
Right.
You didn't capture when you were doing the light reading.
Right.
Yeah.
The meter can be calibrated for different wavelengths and also for different sensors.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has an application for a different type of sensor or a different wavelength, then a calibration, I can just come up with a calibration for it and put it in. And it's all reprogrammable. So if I come up with a new idea or a new feature, or if someone buys a meter and then later on wants to, they go from red to green,
Mm-hmm.
it can be reprogrammed.
Okay.
Send it back, and hopefully it'll get better, as people come up with new ideas and things that I can do with it.
Okay, so basically it is for whether you're either using the meter in the red part of the spectrum or the green part of the spectrum.
Right.
Out of the box.
Right.
Yeah. And the power range?
Well, the power range is somewhat affected by the sensor.
Mm-hmm.
And the power range that I'm able to really feel confident with is up to about 35 milliwatts.
Okay.
Because that's the most powerful laser I have here.
Mm-hmm.
Electrically speaking, it reads from 1 microwatt to 1 watt.
Mm-hmm.
But, obviously when you get into the higher power levels, you may have to do some calibrating for the sensor.
Mm-hmm. I'd get one myself, but I work by eye now, like the old photographers would do back in the early days of photography. I rarely even do readings anymore myself. I think after you make so many holograms for so many years, you can pretty much just look at a setup, and you're already in the ballpark. Your mind already knows where you need to be.
That's right.
But for someone that's just starting out, it's of utmost importance, because you're training your mind at that point.
That's right.
To take a look at something, get a reading from it, and the mind remembers over time. It may not remember just after doing it for a week, but if you're doing it day after day, week after week, and year after year, eventually you just look at something and you can pretty much tell where you're going to be with it.
I agree with that, and I think one thing that makes that whole process easier is if you can standardize.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I just do red, and I stay with a 4x5 inch format.
Mm-hmm.
And my table geometries are
there you
pretty stable. They're usually one of two choices depending on whether I'm making H1s or H2 copies. And so with all of that, you're right. You do develop a feeling or an intuition for what works.
Mm-hmm.
But still, if you're experimenting or you're going a little bit outside your envelope, maybe with a different color or a different laser, or sometimes the subject matter too can be a little tricky, or a different film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most of the silver films are fairly similar, but there is some variation. I definitely think the Ultimate's more sensitive and the BB is less sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're using a brand new film, you probably want to start where the manufacturer recommends.
Yes.
It's a good starting point, and a meter can help you make sure you're starting there and help you eliminate some of the variables right out of the box.
Yeah, yeah. Have you worked on any larger format films or plates yet, like 8x10 and up?
No, I haven't.
No.
As I said, I've kind of specialized. I have a 2x2 table that I've built. It's a hexcan table.
Oh, okay.
So it's literally soda cans between two skins of steel.
That was John Clayer that started that.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I think it might have been him.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of different people who've investigated it, and I built one. Another interesting thing about my approach is that I don't have a lot of room, even though I have a reasonably sized house. I have a lot of other hobbies going on. I'm into amateur radio.
Oh, okay.
Model rocketry.
And
so space is a premium. And I didn't have a room that I could dedicate as a dark room. So I've taken over, actually, my wife ended up convincing me to remodel the downstairs bathroom so that it can be used both for chemistry and for regular downstairs bathroom function.
You've been bitten by the bug.
So one of the things that I've developed is a technique where most of my processes can be carried out in room light. So I use 5x7 Graflex film holders as my film holder.
Okay.
And I rebuild them so that you can put a piece of 4x5 film or sandwiched between glass, or you can put a glass plate in them, and it'll be mounted stably. And that was a trick in itself. And then you can put the slides on this thing, and you can carry it around the house.
Wow.
And then my table is enclosed in foam core. It's about a 3-foot cube around this 2-foot table. And on one side, there's a port where I've cut out a square, and I've made what looks like a Graflex camera entry.
Okay.
It's insulated from light and vibration by several layers of black trash bag plastic. And you can position everything you want inside the box and put the plate holder in and close up the box and then pull the dark slides out, and then you can make an exposure that way.
Well, do you have any pictures anywhere of this? Because this is sounding awful familiar to me. Like I've seen some pictures of your studio or something.
I think I've put some pictures like this up on Michael Harrison's website.
Okay.
He's been kind enough to host some space for me.
Yeah, because it all sounds very familiar, like I've seen it.
So I may have described some of it and put up some pictures.
Yeah, because I've never been there. We've never met, right?
Nope.
No, we've never met.
Nope.
All right, anything you want to add, Tony? We're coming up, well, actually over 20 minutes now. I like to keep it short just so that the file sizes don't get too big, because the audio files. Some people are still on dial-up modems, and that's fine, but what I try to do is to make everybody happy, so I try to keep the file sizes as small as possible because they're downloading on, dial-up modems and things still. Anything you'd like to add before we close it out?
I think I'm just kind of looking at a cheat sheet here to see if we've covered everything. Basically, it's an accurate light meter. It gives you some computations that help you out. It has real-time readings that you can use if you're making adjustments or if you're trying to set beam ratios. And runs on a battery and simple to use and
affordable.
And affordable, yes. So I'm hoping that some folks will be interested in it, and I'm just trying to make whatever kind of a contribution I can to the hobby.
Yeah.
And really, that's my point of view on it. I'm not like many people who sort of think that holography is going to be the next big thing. Well,
good for you, because you're in for a big surprise.
The next big thing for many, many years.
Yeah, I know. I'm drawing a blank, so just hold on with me here for a second. How can someone get in touch with you? Do you want to give your phone number? Do you want me to put your phone number on the HoloTalk website page when people listen to the show, or what do you want them to do?
Probably the best thing would be to give out the email address.
Okay.
I think that would be.
And I'll place a link to that also, so that people can just click on that and send you an email.
Yeah, that would be the best thing.
Do you have a PayPal account where people can pay you online, or you just check money order thing?
I do have a PayPal account.
Okay.
At the moment, I can only accept payment from a checking account. I can't accept payment from a credit card.
All right.
I'm just really a user and not a seller.
I see. Well, you can you can work that out with everyone else when they contact you.
I can't take credit cards. I can't accept credit cards.
Oh, okay.
I have access to a merchant account where I can run those through.
Okay. So, want to give them the email address?
Sure. It's BAROCKTEER
Okay.
Rocketeer.
Oh, okay.
And that's from one of my other hobbies that I resurrected by typing something into the internet late at night.
Yeah, I did some little model rocketing when I was a kid. It was a lot of fun.
Well, like holography, the model rocketry area has grown up as well. And when you were a kid, you probably thought a C or a D was a big engine.
Yeah.
And nowadays, the model rocketry can go as high as M.
Wow.
And each letter is a doubling. It's a doubling of the amount of power.
Isn't that something? I know some people launch cameras and everything on them now.
Cameras, video.
Small children? Pets?
Well, you're not supposed to launch anything with a backbone. That's the.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's the safety.
Isn't that something, huh? Wow, I'll have to look. No, I'm not going to look that up. I'm not going to look that up. That's it. Yep. I've got too many things going on now.
That's right.
When I turned 50, I chose there were a few things that I was going to continue to do, and I was dropping everything else. And I chose holography, getting back involved with music and composing again, which I've started to do. I put a recording studio in, and fitness, cycling, boxing and things of that nature that I've been doing for years.
Well, that's a great one.
That's it. That is it. Nothing else and nothing new. This is going to take me out for the rest of my life, and I'm not going to put model rocketry into a search engine. That was a lot of fun, though. I have seen some videos of people who have had the small USB-type cameras or whatever it was that they had on the nose of the rocket, and they'd launch that up into the neighborhoods and stuff, and it was like, I've got to do this. But I'm going to stay away from it. All right, Tony. It was really nice talking to you.
Well, thank you very much for calling.
I hope we get a chance to meet sometime.
Yeah.
We're not too far apart from one another.
No.
And
maybe one of these days they'll have some kind of a get-together in the Northeast. I know that they've been trying to have one. I tried to have one in Georgia, but it kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
But if they had one in the Northeast, I think we would get together.
Yeah. Well, I get up there sometimes around the Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard area. I don't know how far that is from where you are.
Well,
but if I ever find myself coming up there again, probably won't be this summer.
I'm only about a 2-hour drive from the Cape.
Oh, okay.
Probably, actually, about an hour and a half from the bridges, infamous bridges.
I usually stay in a town called Falmouth.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know where that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's only about an hour and a half from me.
Yeah, and then we take the boat over. All right, Tony.
All right, Frank.
Have a good rest of the night, and at some point I'll get this all. I don't think we need to do too much. I don't do too much editing on it. If I stumble over something, I usually leave it in, but if someone else stumbles, I take it out for them if they want to. But you did a wonderful job. You were prepared. You knew what you wanted to say, and you got it across comprehensively, and I think we'd be ready to go with it.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Sure. Adios, amigo.
All right, thanks, Frank.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.